What's happening? Thanks for joining us as always on this Tuesday morning. It is very much appreciated. Very, very special guest on today's show. Let's bring him in right now. Alex Barth, my guy from 98.5 The Sports Hub. He's all over the place. CLNS, he does the Patriots Beat podcast as well, and Catch 22 if that's not enough. He's got a million jobs, and most of them have to do with talking about the draft. How you doing, Alex?
I'm good. I apologize for being a minute late here. Like you said, I just, it was like 10:45 and I was like, I got one more mock draft to do. I'll start putting this thing together. I'll just write the open. I'll have plenty of time. And then all of a sudden I lose track of the clock and I get a text from you. I'm like, there's no way it's been 15 minutes, but it's that time of year where it's just, draft board. I got, things where I got to go food shopping, I got to do laundry, all that. But nope, that'll all come next week. We got the draft here. So
no doubt, man.
That is the solo focus.
Lots going on. I'm happy that I sent you that message then. All right. So I want to do something different with Alex to start this show because Alex has been all over the place. Again, all the things that he does. He's also on Andrew Callahan's podcast, Pat's Interference last week. He's done, I think, Taylor Kyle's podcast. So it's difficult to have Alex on and say, let's just talk about these prospects because everybody knows, Alex's thoughts on the very top guys, especially. So what I want to do is I want to start this off with top, pop, and flop. And what that is I want Alex to really have his own board. And I want him to look at all of these prospects and look at guys that are likely going to be available for the Patriots. We're not just talking about first rounders here. Guys where Alex can look at it. It's not the last time I want to do that.
Close enough. Trust me, you're not the first person. You're not the last person to do that.
But we can look at, Alex's board and guys that he says, okay, well, I don't want to use a first round pick on this position or this position. So we're going to do a top, pop, and flop. We'll look at the top guy likely available to the Patriots at a certain position. Then we'll look at a guy that we think could pop, likely available to the Patriots, could surprise you in year 1 or 2. And then a flop, self-explanatory. Alex will look at that guy and say, he's likely going to be available to the Patriots, but I don't like him. I think he's going to fail badly. And now we're going to do this at positions that we think the Patriots are mostly looking at. So free safety, edge, tight end, wide receiver, offensive tackle, and quarterback. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start defense. And that might anger some of you. But we're going to keep the biggest 3 needs to the very end. We want to wait on wide receiver, tackle, and quarterback. We want to look at some of these other positions, and it will also give all of you a feel as to how this is going to go down. So let's look at this, Alex. Let's begin with free safety. First, how do you feel about that position currently with the Patriots roster?
Yeah, I think free safety in particular is kind of a sneaky big need. And after they re-signed Kyle Duggar, I know some people probably thought, all right, safety's less of a need now. I'd actually argue it's more when you look specifically at that free safety position, because after Devin McCourty retired last year, how did the Patriots fill that deep safety role? It was mainly Kyle Duggar early in the season, and then they rotated Jabril Peppers back into that role late, allowing Kyle Duggar to play more towards the line of scrimmage. But the reality is, look, both those players are capable free safeties, but those are high-impact guys when they're playing near the line of scrimmage, and they just don't make the same impact when they're playing on the back end. They're just not as good, and that's not their fault. It's a different position. So specifically when it comes to Kyle Duggar, because he played more deep safety last year, if you want to be able to maximize what he can give you, especially on this big contract, he needs to be playing in the box. He needs to be playing as a strong safety, box safety. He needs to be playing along the line of scrimmage. So in order to do that, obviously you need a deep safety, and maybe that's not a true center fielder, single high Devin McCourty type of player, because the way colleges play now, it's such a different system. You don't get that many of those guys coming to the NFL now, although there are a few in this draft, but somebody with more experience on the back end, even who can play in a 2 high, to allow Kyle Duggar to be in his more natural position. So I think this is a sneaky big need. I think I had it at 4 or 5 on my biggest needs. I did my Patriots draft needs this morning on 98.5thesportshub.com. I mean, this is up there. I think it's their biggest defensive need.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's been overlooked. We tend to look at the offense when we talk about this team because it's been so glaring the last couple of years, but they do have some defensive needs. So free safety, let's look at first, and we'll do really, quick reviews of each prospect. We don't need Alex to be going into 10-minute dissertations on each position.
Well, I
But
mean, you know who you're talking to here.
I know. Hey, it's your time, man. It's your time. It's not
Yeah.
mine. I'm here as long as you want to be here. But
All
let's
right.
look at free safety, likely available to the Patriots. Let's start with the guy that you would say is at the top of their list.
So, I mean, it depends how high they want to pick a safety, but like if they really identify this as we need a guy on that back end, we want to go out and try to find the next Devin McCourty. We know that's going to cost a premium pick, but this guy will unlock us. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying if that's the goal for them, it's Tyler Nubin from Minnesota, who they would probably have taken 34. Maybe they could trade back a little bit. But I mean, you still got to be, within the top 40, 41, 42, somewhere in there. Really, really smart safety, great ball skills, a ton of experience. Really, the only knock, he's not slow, but he's not fat. Like Devin McCourty ran a 4.3, right? He doesn't have that kind of speed. He's more of, I think he ran a low 4.5. So he makes up for that with his instincts. He can read plays so well that he can kind of cheat and get ahead and make up for that lack of closing speed. But that's basically why he's a high second round pick instead of a first round pick.
All right,
But I
let's look
think
at a guy.
he can make up for that.
Let's look at a guy that, again, likely available to the Patriots. We're trying to keep this as realistic as possible.
Okay.
Somebody that might not be at the top of the list, but you think could actually pop in year 1 or 2 for the Pats.
Cam Kitchens from Miami. So Alonzo Highsmith has the familiarity with him. He was projected to be the top safety in this class. Then he had a terrible combine. Like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It was terrible. But I watch him on film, and he's a much better athlete than he tested. And he has those instincts, which are key at the safety position. He's a big hitter. He's a leader on the field, all of that. I think somebody's going to get a steal because now he's supposed to be like late day 2, early day 3.
Yeah. Yep.
Somebody who can see past the combine is going to get a steal. And I think the Patriots are in as good of a position to do that as anybody because, again, they have that connection to Miami with Alonzo Highsmith, who was there last year working with them.
All right, before we continue, I remind you to give us that thumbs up. Every like means the world. Let's slap that YouTube algorithm in the face. So give us that thumbs up, like us, and subscribe. The goal is 3,500 subscribers. That's next one on the list. So if you're sitting here enjoying the content with Alex Barth and myself, you can give us that like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Pods On Demand, rate and review. All right, let's wrap up free safety with your flop, Evan. I did it again, Alex. Jeez.
We can keep a count to that. Every time Nick does that, you have to give a like.
My God.
Every time Nick does that, give a like and a thumbs up. My flaw, I don't know if this is a cop-out, because I actually think it's a decent safety class. Any of the box safeties, any of the true box safeties, whoever they are, and there's a number of them, whether it's, a guy like Cole Bishop, Malik Mustafa, Keaton Oladipo, this is up and down the board. I just think they have Kyle Duggar. They have Jabril Peppers. They drafted Marte Mapu last year. Yep. If you draft a box safety, he's probably not going to play. And so that hinders his development. And, if you take on the 6th or 7th round, you just draft him for special teams, whatever. But like, I would hate to see them use a top 150 pick on a box safety because I don't see how that guy's getting on the field anytime soon. And guys got to play to get better. And so that would worry me.
All right, let's continue at edge now. Your top likely available edge to the Patriots.
So again, this is a position where could they justify it at 34? I mean, if they really feel it's somewhere they need to upgrade, it's probably Chris Braswell from Alabama, which would be a case where you trade back from 34. I don't think they'd outright take an edge at 34. And the reality is most of the edge guys are either first round picks. They're going to go a little later in the second. Typical Alabama edge rusher. He's incredibly technically skilled. He's a great athlete, explosive. He knows how to get after the quarterback. Honestly, some of the reason these Alabama guys go later is just none of them have eye-popping numbers because they have to split the numbers with each other. When you're rushing opposite Dallas Turner, you're just not going to have a 20-sack season because he's taking too many away. So if the Patriots really want to go out and be like, we need to get Matthew Judon's replacement, we need to get a game-changing pass rusher, but we want to take quarterback at 3, I think Chris Braswell would probably be the guy you talk about in that regard.
All right, I want to remind people, Alex and I were going top, pop, and flop, looking at some of the players that will be available to the Patriots at the most needy positions: free safety, edge, tight end, wide receiver, tackle, quarterback. We are going to get to tight ends, tackles, wide receivers, and quarterbacks, but we're taking care of the defense first by design. So be patient with us, and while you sit there, give us that thumbs up. All right, let's look at somebody at edge Alex, that you think could pop for this team in the first year or two that might not be at the tippity top of the board?
So that'd be Mohamed Kamara from Colorado State. He's, I'd probably take him 103 in that range. He's a little undersized. He's 6'1", 252, and out of Colorado State, but he had a very productive season. Physically strong player, high motor, doesn't quit on plays. Now, sometimes that motor can be a gift and a curse. He's going to have to hone that. But I mean, I just look at the way he gets into the backfield, how often he gets into the backfield, how many different ways he can get into the backfield. It's like, man, if this guy was 2 inches taller and was playing in the SEC, we'd be talking about a top 50 pick. Now, obviously, neither of those are the case, but when you have pretty much all your top edge rushers, pass rushers, Matthew Judon, Josh Uche, in contract years, you draft Mohamed Kamara, you play him a little bit this year, and then I think next year he could be ready to step into a significant pass rushing role if Judon or Uche or whoever are gone.
All right, who's your flop at edge?
My flop, it's tough because I like this class. One guy I'm not a huge fan of that I've seen some people kind of talk about. I've honestly talked a good amount about him because they met with him is Jalix Hunt. Converted safety from Cornell. Really only played special teams at Cornell, transferred to Houston Christian, put on like 40 pounds, started rushing the passer. He's very raw. He could work, but that's a guy you're really not getting much out of outside of special teams until maybe year 3, year 4. So I could see them taking him later on day 3, but like you really have to be committed to the project and know this isn't a guy that's going to be in our defensive plans for a little bit.
All right, so we covered free safety. We covered edge. We are going to get to offense next, but before we get to that, Alex, any other needs defensively? Any other name that you think would be a great fit for this team before we jump to the offensive side of the ball?
I'll give you 2. I think corner is a need.
Yep.
You have Christian Gonzalez back on one boundary. Jonathan Jones going to be boundary or slot. So third starting corner or even a developmental guy, maybe a long-term option in the slot with Jonathan Jones on an expiring contract. I also just think along the defensive line, more so depth than anything else. You go look at their defense line, everybody but Keon White's in a contract year.
Yep.
So even if it's just picking up a guy, 180, 193 in that range, they're going to need to overhaul their defensive line group in the next year or two. Does one guy make a difference? Not massively, but that's one less guy you have to get next year now. So just adding a body there, even if it's somebody you park on the practice squad for 2024, still would make some sense to me.
All right, before we get to the offense, couple things. Let's take care of some business. I got to remind you that the Nick Cattle Show is brought to you by Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. Warzone has 9 maps on 30-plus acres of land, talking multiple villages, trench warfare map, paintball, airsoft. They got kid versions of paintball and airsoft, something for every age group, starting at 6+. Show up with jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt. They will take care of the rest. Low-key, casual, 4.9 star rating online. Alex doesn't even have a 4.9 star rating online. It's tough to do nowadays. Check them out. Warzone Paintball and Airsoft in North Kingston, Rhode Island. Give them a call at 401-228-6366. That's 401-228-6366. Tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. Okay, before we get to offense, we are going to get to offense, but we got a couple of super chats. People paying money to talk to Alex, so I'm going to let them do that. Let's jump to Cool Genuine Phil. Alex in the house, go Pats, Celtics, Bruins, Bo Sox. So Cool Genuine Phil just saying hello. We appreciate you. We appreciate the super chat. Derek Irish jumps in, says the Browns have about $6 million in cap according to Over the Cap. What is the likelihood of trading Amari Cooper? More likely to happen during the draft or after the draft or before the draft, Alex?
Ooh, that's a good one. I hadn't thought much about this. I would guess after.
Yeah.
Because or maybe on draft night kind of thing, or like as the picks happen, like the AJ Brown trade, right? Where that happened as the draft was going on. I think at this point, if you're going to make a trade, it's going to happen during the draft. It's not going to happen the next couple of days. That's a tough one because I feel like they're still trying to maximize their investment on Deshaun Watson. They feel like they're in a window, and he had a really good year last year. He did. And I know he's entering a contract year, but I'd be pretty surprised. I think there's other ways the Browns can open up money. I'd be pretty surprised if they trade Amari Cooper at this point.
All right, let's jump to the next one. After the huddle, $5 super chat. Thank you. Glad you're here. Mr. Barth, big fan of Catch 22 with you and Evan, as am I. I listen to these guys, watch these. When I was living in California, they were my lifeline to draft season and a lot of the stuff going on. Question for both of us. Could we trade back into the late first for a tackle or wide receiver? I'll start. Yes. I think the Patriots could absolutely trade back in. I don't know how you feel, Alex, but I think it's more likely they move back in for a tackle because there might be a huge run when we get to the late teens and 20s.
Yeah. Yeah, this is definitely a possibility. It's something I've talked a lot about. Um, and the question is, it feels like there's going to be a run at the end of the first. Will it be on tackle or receiver?
Yep.
There might be a run on tackle, but the thing is there's more tackles. The drop off from AD Mitchell down is a lot steeper. So if they feel like AD Mitchell has to be their guy, that may be where they go. I'll say this. I love the idea of trading 34, whether it's up or down, just the way this board works and their needs. I love the idea of moving the 34th pick. So I absolutely think moving up is on the table unless they like make the Vikings trade. If they go 11 and 23, they're not going to make 3 first-round picks. But if they pick at 3, you mentioned the late teens. I even think if you can get to the trade off past years that they could make, 34, 103, and 180 gets you to probably like 26, 27. That's Tampa, Arizona. If you
Yeah.
want a wide receiver, that allows you to jump the Bills, or you can maybe, get back a late pick and structure that same deal, go to like 29, 30, move with the Lions or the Ravens or the Niners at 31. And maybe a guy like Tyler Guyton's on the board, or if the tackles really start going, you move up 2 or 3 spots, make sure you get Kingsley Suamatia, something like that. So I absolutely think this is on the table.
And when you bring up Arizona, they would make a lot of sense. They've got 2 first-round picks this year. Of course, Monty Ossenfort, his first year on the job last year, and my man was doing some work on the phone. So keep an eye on that.
Yeah.
And I always look at prior relationships, right? And you mentioned Detroit. In my one and only mock draft, I had the Patriots moving into the first round from 34 to 29 based off of the relationship between John Dorsey, Alonzo Highsmith, and Elliott Wolf. Dorsey's not the shot caller in Detroit, but he is there as one of the, big voices in the room, and he has a history with Wolf and Highsmith. They all work together in Green Bay. They went from Green Bay to Cleveland. So look at teams like that where they have some matches with some of the guys in the front office. Usually that's how this works. All right, before we move on, Alex Barth with me, Catch 22 Podcast, 98.5 The Sports Up, Patriots Beat with CLNS. We're doing some top, pop, and flop. What we're doing is we're looking at the top player available to the Patriots at that position, and we got to be realistic. Like, we can't have Alex break down Drake May and also Roma Dunze because the Patriots aren't getting both of those guys, right? So the top guy likely available to the Patriots at that position. Then we look at pop. Pop means who could surprise you in year one, like Pop Douglas. Top guy, pop guy, likely available, and then, of course, the flop. Let's move to the offense, Alex. We did free safety. We did edge. Next up is tight end. Your top tight end likely available sitting there for the Patriots.
I mean, they could get Brock Bowers at 3. I don't think they will. So I'll go with Jatavian Sanders from Texas.
Yeah.
Probably have taken with the 34th pick, although
I
Miami has
like
been
him, man.
extensively tied to him. I really do. It's funny. I was comparing him to David Njoku before the Patriots hired Alex Van Pelt. And now look at, right, you bring that offense in, and one of my first reactions was they got to get themselves a David Njoku because he was so important in that offense. So I don't know after bringing Hunter Henry back on a multi-year deal if this is, the direction they're going to go, but boy, do I love the idea of Jatavian Sanders in this offense.
All right, give me a tight end name that likely available to the Patriots. So we're really looking at probably 3rd round at the earliest and on. Somebody that could pop, that might surprise people in year 1 or 2.
Yeah, it's tough just because how much is a rookie tight end going to play when you have Hunter Henry, you have Austin Hooper.
Yep.
So just in terms of the guy, honestly, I just went about this as who's going to play, who has the best chance to play as a rookie tight end, and that's Tip Raymond from Illinois, 6-year projected 6th-round pick, because he can block, and those other tight ends can't block. He's 6'5", 271. He's not a liability as a receiver, and he tested very well at the combine for his size, but like nobody's going to confuse him for Travis Kelce. But there's a role for him on this team. I look at the rest of the tight ends on this board. They're all projects. Tip Raymond's the one guy I look at, and I'm like, yes, there is a clear path to snaps for him on the Patriots red zone, short yardage situations in 2024.
Give me a flop.
Flop at the tight end position. I liked Jaheim Bell coming in, but the more we've gone on, I just don't see it because I don't know what position he plays. And I think that's a really tough player to justify bringing in when you're going to have a very specific plan for him. And with all their other needs, I don't know. I don't love it. It's too many shades of Jonnu Smith for me.
Oof.
And
I mean,
he's not that level of athlete where you're like, worst case scenario, we can just fall back on the athleticism.
Pre Patriots Jonnu Smith, not too bad. Even post Patriots Jonnu
Yeah.
Smith, not terrible, but yeah, bad flashbacks, PTSD with Jonnu Smith. All right, now we have some fun. We got the three
All right.
top needs on this football team. I think all of us agree. You got left tackle, you've got wide receiver, you've got quarterback, and now Alex really has the world in his hands because he can do anything. He can do anything in the top 3 rounds. He can go with the quarterback at 3. He can move around. So let's start with wide receiver. Let's start there first. Wide receiver, the top guy likely available to the Patriots. Alex, we don't think they'll be in on Harrison Jr., Odunze, or Neighbors, but maybe they will. The top guy available to them.
So I think if it was that group, they'd go Neighbors, but I'll go with AD Mitchell. He's kind of been my guy for them. I'm sticking to that. Out of Texas, 6'3", 205, ran in the 4.3s, tremendous hands, outstanding catch radius. This is everything. This is the player we have wanted them to draft for years. The true outside X potential coverage dictating receiver. They'd probably have to trade up into the first round to get him. I don't think they're getting him at 34, but I also think that's a realistic trade, so I'll put him here. That best, like realistic best case scenario, he's the best receiver they come out of this draft with.
Where does he go? I mean, I look at the draft order, right? Jacksonville is a little too high. They might be looking at Brian Thomas at 17. You look at other teams that are looking at wide receivers, you would imagine, you know, I don't know, Arizona at 27, maybe Buffalo at 28. So it does feel if you could sneak into the early 20s, you might have a shot at AD Mitchell. All right, which wide receiver likely available to the Patriots do you think could actually pop in year 1? Might surprise people.
People probably think I'm going to say Pop Douglas, but I'll change it up. If they were to add a guy like Roman Wilson, I think Roman Wilson would eat in this offense. I think he'd do it right away. He comes in very NFL ready, great route runner, knows how to separate, good after the catch, quick. He's a quarterback friendly receiver. And when you have a rookie quarterback, which we think the Patriots will have, those guys tend to do pretty well.
Yeah.
So I'll circle Roman Wilson here.
I think Roman Wilson's underrated. I think, at the beginning of the
Yeah.
process, he was talked about a lot more. Now other guys are kind of creeping in and taking his space. I like Roman Wilson. I watched him plenty at Michigan. I like what he brings to the table. So he would absolutely be an interesting pick. How about a flop at wide receiver that you think people are talking about?
I don't see it with Keon Coleman. And I know that's a hot take. I'll throw Troy Franklin in there too. I'll give you 2 because I think neither one's that hot of a take, but I don't see it with either of these guys. They've both drawn a lot of comps. Coleman to Gary, Troy Franklin to Tyquan Thornton. I think rightfully so. Coleman is built like a jump ball receiver, but he doesn't have great hands. And look, Troy Franklin could be a good player. He's a really skinny, fast guy. And if the Patriots feel like they have a plan to make a really skinny, fast guy work, I'd rather take the really skinny, fast guy you have and work with him than blow the 34th pick on another one, essentially a duplicate. So those are the 2 guys that I look at, and I'm like, I don't see it. They're either going to get buried on the depth chart or they're just not a fit. I struggle seeing the fit for those 2 guys in New England.
I worry about Franklin. I actually like Keon Coleman, but I understand.
Yeah.
The cautiousness around him and some people being very concerned about Keon Coleman. I like him, but there's definitely a boomer bust with that guy and that type of talent. All right, before we continue, we'll get to tackles and quarterback. I remind you, give us that thumbs up. Just takes a second of your time. If you enjoy the product, if you enjoy the content, give us that thumbs up on YouTube. Also subscribe, rate, and review. If you're listening on Spotify and Apple Pods, I know a lot of you can't join us live, and some of you listen in the car. So Spotify, Apple Pods, rate, and review. Offensive tackle. Let me first ask you this, Alex. Are you a believer? Are you a believer, young man, in Chukwuekorofo for being able to play left tackle for this team this year?
There's only one scenario where I believe in it, and I'll get to that in a second. But I think what people don't understand is how hard it is to be a swing tackle. That's not moving from left guard to right guard is much easier. Even moving from right guard to right tackle or left guard to left tackle or vice versa is easier because at guard, you're moving both ways quite a bit, right? When you're at tackle, your first step is almost always to the outside. You're never really, blocking inside. So if you've been playing on one side for a significant portion of time, It's like suddenly you have to write with your other hand. Now, yes, Okorafor played left tackle in college, but that was 6 years ago against much lesser opponents. And this gives me flashes of Marshall Newhouse because he was kind of the same. He'd been a left tackle once a long time ago. He was a right tackle and a decent one for a long time. And the Patriots tried to move him back to left, and you could just tell his footwork was off because he wasn't used to playing on that side. So there's also certain things that come with being a blindside protector. I don't mind it as a plan B. I hate it as plan A. And if it's plan A with no real plan B behind it, that scares me. It feels like what they were doing last year where they're just, we have like 6 options at left tackle. What are the odds? None of them work. None of them worked. The one scenario where I'd see it is if they draft Michael Penix, because at least now he's not the blind side protector.
Right.
And that does change things. So that would be my one caveat on that. If they draft Michael Penix, okay, now you move Mike Onwenu back in a right guard. You have 2 high-level tackles in this draft who are blindside right tackles, and Tyler Guyton, Troy Fatano. You take one of them. So now you have that rookie, Onwenu, Andrews. You have Cole Strange, City So, Antonio Monfils, Jake Andrews battle it out at left guard. And then you have Chooks at left tackle. Not terrible. Not terrible with a lefty quarterback specifically.
All right, let's look at tackle now. Top available guy to the Patriots.
I just passed on like Harrison and all those guys. So I'm going to pass on Joe Alt, even though I think he's fantastic.
Beast.
I'm going to go Tyler Guyton. He's kind of the same as AD Mitchell. Like, is he there at 34? Maybe, I don't know, but like he's realistic in terms of a trade up from 34, or if they move down and end up with 11 and 23. And he was a blindside right tackle. So he's a guy that with that plus his athleticism, yes, he does have to make the move to left. He's a bit of a project, but I think he's more equipped to make that kind of move. And he's a guy that if you coach him up correctly, 6'6", 340 pounds, 36-inch arms, he's got the physical makeup of a franchise left tackle. So I think that's as close as you're getting in that regard.
Let's look at the tackle class and ask for a guy who might pop. Now, this will probably be more in the middle round, somebody who might spike in year 1, or most likely, because we're talking tackle and development, year 2, Alex.
I got to go with Patrick Paul. I think he's being tremendously slept on. People are talking about him as like a late day 2 pick. I think he should be right up there in the top 50. He's kind of just a slightly lesser version of Tyler Guyton, where he's this big, physical, imposing presence. He doesn't play as big as he is, and he needs to work on that. But if you can get him there, he also is a left tackle. He's been a starting left tackle for multiple seasons. I think he's a lot more NFL ready than people realize.
Your flop.
My flop is Jordan Morgan. Because, look, is he a good player? Yes. But he's probably a guard. And I see people say, well, you draft him, you try him at tackle. If it doesn't work, great, you've got a good guard. No, they took a guard in the first round 2 years ago. They took 3 guards in the top 150 last year. No more guards. No more half measures. You need to find a franchise left tackle. A guy who might be a guard is not a franchise left tackle. It reminds me a lot of Isaiah Wynn, frankly, the whole process. So I would rather go down swinging with the guy who has a chance to be a true franchise left tackle than play it safe and be like, worst case scenario, he's a guard. No, I have no interest in that guy.
Especially when you just, spent recently that first round pick on Cole Strange. Right. Give me a break with that. Alex Barth with us. Catch 22 Pod 98.5 The Sports Hub. Patriots Beat with CLNS. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast and channel. All right. Quarterback is obviously different. We all know the names. Yeah. So tell me, if you're looking at this, how close is your evaluation between Drake May and Jaden Daniels?
So the way I've explained it is, if I had to rank them out of 100, right, Madden rating, I would have Jaden Daniels as an 85 and Drake May as an 84. Like, they're that close.
Yeah.
In a bubble. But when you take other things into account, including system fit, I actually think Drake May is a better fit in New England because his strengths line up better with what Alex Van Pelt wants to do.
Beyond May and Daniels, how does your quarterback board fall?
So I have Caleb Williams as zone guy. Then I have in the second tier.
Let me cut you off here for a second. Because we've all talked about Caleb Williams and we've all said like, oh, no doubt he's the number 1 guy. What are your concerns about him? And I'm not talking about off the field stuff. he's been somewhat of a turnover machine. I think that's been overlooked a little bit because he tries to do a little too much, but just anything, if you're Chicago,
Yeah.
Alex, and you're sitting there, anything that might creep into the back of your head of, we got to make sure he doesn't do this or that.
He needs to be better in structure. Just, 3-stop, hit the back foot, get the ball out quick. It was a lot of playground stuff at USC, and look, he kind of had to do that, but he's in the NFL. He doesn't have to, and that stuff's not going to work as regularly. So it's just kind of, not turning every play. He's very good when the play breaks down, and there's certainly going to be times he has to go to that, but not going to that as quickly, I think, would be the biggest thing he has to work on.
All right, so Williams in his own tier.
Yeah.
And then the rest of your quarterback board. Let's go up to, I don't know if you want to include a guy like Pratt. I don't know if you want to include Joe Milton. I know you've had a lot of stuff to say about Milton, especially early in this process. But how's the rest of your board look?
I mean, I had like 15 on 98.5sportshub.com if people want to check that out. So my second tier, and then in order within the tier, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, Michael Penix. Then I have JJ McCarthy is kind of his own thing. Then I have Bo Nix, who's kind of his own thing. And to me, the drop-off is after 5. I think the gap between Nix and McCarthy is bigger than the gap between Rattler and Nix. Like, I think Nix he has not impressed me whatsoever during this process, but so it'd be Nix, then I go Rattler, then Milton, then Pratt, then Jordan Travis, then Devin Leary, Sam Hartman, and that's Carter Bradley. That rounds out all my draftable quarterbacks.
Sam Hartman, my Fighting Irish guy. Don't think he's going to be very good, but
no,
I got to stand up for the Notre Dame, okay? I got to stand up for the Fighting Irish.
You know what? He's not going to be very good, but he's going to be in the league for 10 years because teams will want him on the practice squad. They want him in the room. He's just going to hang around as a third, especially now that you can elevate the third string quarterback on game day, or the practice string quarterback on game day as that emergency third. Sam Hartman is going to be in this league for a long time. I don't know that he'll ever play a snap, but he's going to be in this league for a long time.
Let me ask you this. So if you're Elliott Wolf and you're looking at draft capital, you said Daniels and May, those guys are very close. Then you've got the other quarterbacks, but you've got Penix there as well.
Yeah.
What kind of draft capital would it take for you to move away from the opportunity of drafting one of Daniels or May?
So looking at the two most likely trades, if they move back to 6 with the Giants, I want 6, the Giants second, whatever it is this year. I forget. I think it's like 47. 6, 47, next year's first, next year's third. That's based off of what that kind of trade has looked like in the past. That's what I think the bag is in that sense. If it's Minnesota at 11, I want 11. I want 23. I want next year's first. I want the first after that. And I want a future day 2 pick with second, third, next year, future years, whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I'm asking for, because if the board starts falling a certain way, I may need to move back up from 11 to get Michael Penix. And if that's the case, suddenly this bag I just got is going to evaporate. So I want to make sure I'm plenty taken care of in case I got to move back up to 7 or 8 and get my quarterback.
All right. Let's do some lightning round questions. And we got a couple of super chats to get to.
Cool.
If the 11 and 23 deal happens, your 2 favorite prospects for those 2 spots, would it be Penix at 11 and then somebody else at 23?
Penix at 11, and then I'd go tackle second for Penix just because you have to keep him protected with his injury history.
Yeah.
I'm pretty torn between Tyler Guyton and Amarius Mims. I think they'd go Tyler Guyton. I'd probably ultimately go Tyler Guyton, but if Amarius Mims is there and he falls a little bit, which doesn't feel unrealistic, that's a lot of potential to pass on. The floor is not great, but that's a ton of potential to pass on. I'd probably go Guyton ultimately because, again, he's been that blind side right tackle.
What are you doing at 34?
If that trade happens, or just in general?
No, let's say no trade. What are you doing at 34?
I still want the tackle second. I might even move up, but whether it's moving up or just sitting there, I want the tackle second, whether it's Guyton, whether it's Kingsley, not Jordan Morgan. We talked about that, but I think they're going to go receiver second. I think they see receiver as a bigger need than tackle, but I don't love Chuck Sikora for right tackle. That layout scares me, and I'm not putting a rookie quarterback behind a sieve left tackle again. We just saw what that looks like. I'm not doing another year of that.
All right. If the trade does go down, you get 11, 23. What do you do at 34?
Now I'm gunning for AD Mitchell because I got my tackle at 23. Now if you can come out of this with Michael Penix, Tyler Guyton, AD Mitchell, oh boy, now we are really cooking with gas. Now we are. Although I honestly wonder if they would trade down again. I wonder if they would trade down again, and having already made 2 picks, and just if AD Mitchell goes where they can't get him, and they're sitting there, and it's like Kingsley on the board at 34, and some of these corners maybe fall at 34, some of these interior linemen that they don't need, Graham Barton, Jackson Powers Johnson. Now, Elliot Wolf said we're a draft and develop team. The more picks we have, the better. You've made 2 picks. You have your quarterback. You have your left tackle. Maybe a team gets really desperate. You get a future first for 34, or at the very least, a future second from a bad team. You really set yourself up. I might even look to trade that if AD Mitchell doesn't fall.
All right, so we went through a lot of scenarios. Before we get to the super chats, again,
Yeah.
don't forget to give us that thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe. When Alex Barth puts his head on the pillow tonight and tomorrow night and tries to sleep, because we know Alex is not sleeping a lot because the anxiety, the excitement is getting at him. He's probably averaging 2 hours a night. What is the perfect draft weekend for Alex Barth?
Drake May, realistically, Drake May, Tyler Guyton at 34 with a trade up. There's a couple wide receivers I take at 68, Jalen McMillan, Tez Walker, Johnny Wilson, just some sort of high upside receiver, 68. And then round it out, give me a guy who can be a rotational corner. Give me a guy who can be a situational free safety. Give me a project edge rusher. They hit those, and give me a running back. Just a run. They need a guy who can beat out Kevin Harris. Give me a guy that can beat out Kevin Harris. They hit those 7 notes. They did pretty well.
I love it. Add a veteran wide receiver if you can do it. Wide receiver 1 using a pick for next year. Not any picks out of this year's draft. If they could somehow make a deal and bring in a veteran wide receiver 1, an X guy for a pick next year, home run. All right, let's jump through a few.
So would you rather give up next year's first or this year's second for AJ Brown? I think it's 34. No, I would trade 34 for AJ Brown easily. Yeah. I would trade 34, even if it's next year's second. I don't know what that pick's going to be. You're not drafting anybody better than AJ Brown at 34. And then if you make the trade with the Vikings, Michael Penix, Tyler Guyton, AJ Brown, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, AJ Brown, Brandon Ayuk's another guy. I know, Lynch is kind of trying to, when I hear somebody say we anticipate or we expect somebody to be here, people usually go crazy with that. To me, that means we don't know. I remember when Pete Carroll came out and said something like that. They anticipated Russell Wilson to be there, and then like a month later, he was dealt. All right, let's jump through a couple of super chats, then call it a day. Ken Weber jumps in, $5 super chat. We've all been looking at offensive tackle, talking about the rookies in the draft. How many true left tackles are there? Guyton being a right tackle, etc. What do you think, Alex? How many true left tackles in this draft?
Yeah, at the top, I mean, there's definitely not a ton. It's definitely more of a right tackle draft. You have Joe Alt's a true left tackle. Olu Fashanu a true left tackle. I think I guess he's not a true left tackle because he played right at Washington, or because he played blind side, strong side left at Washington. Alt, Fashanu, Mims, Kingsley's a true left tackle. Patrick Paul's a true left tackle. That would probably be it in the top 100 in terms of true. But I do think there are other guys that realistically project as left tackles.
The New England Patriot kid, $5 super chat. Thank you. With a combination of size, athleticism, and blocking, I think Tip Ryman has great pop potential if he can improve his receiving game. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think he can be better. He's never going to be your number 1 tight end. He's never going to be like a real receiving threat. He's 271 pounds. He moves like he's 271 pounds. There's nothing wrong with that. But he's a capable receiver, and he's not a guy that like teams can leave alone entirely in the passing game. I wouldn't call him like a 6th tackle or a 3rd tackle in the formation or anything like that. So he's never going to be a true top receiving tight end. Like he'll never be number 1 on your depth chart unless you don't plan on throwing the ball to the tight end, but he can be serviceable.
All right, let's shut down the super chats. I got 2 more to get to, and then we'll get Alex out of here. Justin TF Patriot. Hey guys, do you know what wide receivers were brought in for top 30s? Says only Troy Franklin and Javon Baker. That's concerning if true. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I believe that's it. I know they hosted Jalen Coker from Holy Cross. It was a local visit. That's it. Yeah, I believe it's just Franklin Baker. But the Patriots met with 45 players last year. They only drafted 2 of them,
Right.
Marcus Jones and Jack Jones. So I wouldn't worry too much about that.
I'm with you on that. Cool Genuine Phil pops in again, says chances Judon gets traded.
I'm surprised we're not talking about this more. He's got no guaranteed money in his contract. He's going to need a new deal. Realistically, by the time he get good again, is he still on the team? They may want to keep him for like the leadership tangent, but I looked back at this, Nick. If you go and look at his numbers compared to Khalil Mack the year before he got traded to the Chargers, and by the way, Mack was also coming off a season-ending injury.
Yeah.
But his 3 previous years and Judon's 3 previous years, Judon outperforms him in every category. Judon's also a year younger than Mack was, and Mack was overpaid. Now, Mack went for a second-round pick and a day 3 pick. I don't see why you couldn't get that for Judon. Again, they may just want to keep him, and they're going to get a new deal done and whatever, and it seems like that seems to be the way Elliott Wolf operates. I'm surprised this isn't more of a discussion, though, frankly, because if you're telling me you could get a pick in like the 40s for Matt Judon, that could be huge. That could be huge.
You wonder how much the culture plays a role. And again,
Right.
he said that he wants to be here, but he also said that he'd like to retire a Patriot, which told me I want to be here as long as you give me the long-term deal. All right, last super chat. Stop sending super chats. I know some of you are on delay, but we got to get Alex out of
Stop
here.
giving Nick money.
Well, I got to buy you a beer or two because I'm not going to take all this super chat money on my own. They're asking you questions. Let's go to Nelson Lloyd. Last super chat question of the day, folks. We appreciate you. We love your support, but let's cap it here. Where would you rate Walter Rouse as a developmental left tackle, and would you draft Brendan Rice?
I like Rouse. I do. Experienced starter. He's played multiple systems. He was the strong side left tackle at Oklahoma this year. I did a mock draft earlier this spring where I took both Oklahoma tackles. If they want to like double up, I wouldn't want Rouse to be the only tackle they take, but if they want to double up on day 3, great double up candidate, swing tackle potential, all that. I like Brendan Rice. He's that true X kind of player they need. Maybe not as high of a ceiling, but the dude is very tough to cover. I don't think 68 would be a bit of a reach. I don't think it would be a massive reach, but if they were to end up with like a pick in the 80s, I think he'd be a great selection. If they want to go quarterback tackle and they're saving wide receiver for that 3rd selection, Brendan Rice would be a great option. I love his fit in New England specifically.
Like, subscribe, rate, review. Help us out here at the Nick Cattle Show. That's how we continue to grow this brand and expand across New England. Trying to be your alternative. Not saying the other guys do it wrong. They do it their way. We do it our way. So if you want to check it out, continue. Give us that thumbs up. Means the world to us. Alex Barth joining us. Means the world to me. Catch 22 podcast. 98.5 The Sports Hub. Patriots beat with CLNS. I only called him Evan twice, which was a major win because the first 7 minutes was rough. But Alex, I appreciate you, man. And now I owe you a couple of beers due to the super chat. So hopefully we catch up soon. But thank you for your time, man. I appreciate you.
For sure. Thanks for having me.
All right, that'll do it. Tomorrow, we're back at 11 a.m. unless something breaks, of course, but we're back at 11 a.m. tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for sending some super chats Alex's way. Until next time, it's the Nick Cattle Show.